All right. Hey, everybody. This is the Longhorn Confidential, and we are live. I'm Danny Davis, the Austin American-Statesman, joined by Thomas Jones. As you can see it by our nice little graphics down here, we're Longhorns insiders. I guess that's what we're called today. So we appreciate that love by Nate, who's running the show from behind the scenes. Makes me feel all official and stuff. But we're here. It's day two here in New Orleans. We're here to talk about defense today for the next 15 minutes or so because that's what Texas was talking about today. Pete Kwiatkowski, the defensive coordinator, spent about 15 minutes this morning at a press conference with us following PK's comments. Five players, T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Barron Sorrell, Jahdae Barron, Jaylan Ford, all came in and did 15-minute sessions with the media. Actually, they did two 15-minute sessions, one with print media, one with the TV cameras. So lots of opportunities to talk to those guys about this week, the Sugar Bowl coming up as the countdown to the semifinal kind of goes down. So obviously, the Texas defense is going to be in the spotlight this weekend because, in part, Washington has a really good offense, averaging just about 470 yards per game, 37.7 points per game. Both of those averages are among the top in the nation. Texas, so defensively, has played really well this season, allowing 17.5 points per game. That ranks 13th nationally, so that's going to be a nice little clash at the Superdome next Monday. So, TJ, we'll start with you since you got to ask a question during the press conference. Unfortunately, these press conference situations, not everyone gets to ask questions, so you managed to get in while everyone else is raising their hands, try and catch the attention of the moderator. I got to ask you your tips for getting the attention of the guy on the podium. But what were your thoughts about what PK had to say when he was on the mic today?
I sat right in front of the moderator. That was one thing. Look, for those that don't know, we as reporters don't get a chance to talk to the coordinators at all during the season. We talk to them once in the preseason. We get to talk to them during the bowl game or in this case the CFP. So, what did I get from Coach PK? Look, their defense has been okay. Let's start with the positives. Their run defense is great. We all know that with T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Jaylan Ford, awesome in the middle, awesome run defense, but they've had issues in the secondary. And Coach PK was pretty clear about what they need to do. You got to avoid the explosive plays. And how do you do that? You got to defend the long balls, the jump balls, and you got to tackle better to keep those 10-yard gains to 10 and not 30 down the field. So I thought he was fairly open with us. He wasn't afraid to criticize his team. Again, tackling is going to be key against these Washington defenders. And I think PK was pretty clear about that.
Yeah, I thought one thing that kind of stood out to me was obviously you're not going to do a press conference talking about Washington without talking about Michael Penix, their excellent quarterback, the Heisman Trophy runner-up. And Texas got to see him last year in the Alamo Bowl, and Michael played pretty well, kind of a springboard, I guess, into this season with how Washington played in that game. But, when talking about him, we talked about his touch, his accuracy, some of the ways he was able to throw some footballs last year and just kind of how impressed he was last year. And I'll read a quote he said, quote, "We know how good he is from last year playing them and watching them all year long. We know what kind of challenge we've got on Monday. So obviously they know what's ahead of them and they kind of know the challenges, that Michael and some of those fine receivers are going to present to this Texas secondary." And he also, expressed some confidence in his secondary, which you'd expect. He's not going to go up there and trash those guys back there. But, he talked about, obviously with their fine run defense and some of the stuff they've been able to do on third down. I mean, there's going to be some shortcomings elsewhere in the defense, but it doesn't mean he doesn't think that this secondary can get it done on Monday when they face a very explosive passing offense, statistically the best passing offense in the country. And I also thought, as you are correct, we don't really get to know these coaches at all. With just kind of how Steve likes it. He likes to be the voice of the coaching staff, so we don't really get to know these guys. And I'm sure PK and his group can't tell us apart. He probably thinks we're the same person, even though we look very different aside from the balding head. But he did kind of give us a little insight into his life. Said that Scott Huff, who's the offensive line coach at Washington, is one of his best friends. Obviously PK came down here from Washington, so that was nice to get a little insight into Pete's life and kind of know the circles he runs in. And we'll get a chance to talk to Scott in a couple of days at Washington's media day, so we can maybe get some stories about Pete from back in his Seattle days. So that was kind of nice to get to know him. But enough about the coaches. We want to talk a little bit about the players. As I said, 5 players came in and talked to us. T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy came as a duo, and then the second session with the print was Jahdae, Barron, Sorrell, and Jaylan Ford. What did you gather from those 2 media sessions? Did anything kind of stand out to you?
Well, you know, to be honest, these are some guys they bring out usually to the media. So guys like Jaylan Ford and Jahdae Barron, and they're very comfortable, you know, kind of preaching Sark's message. So look, they gave respect. You know, they were all very respectful of Washington, but they're like, hey, they're a good team, but you know, so are we. We'll find out we'll find out on New Year's Day. So they stuck to the message. You know, it's a business trip for these guys, to their credit. That's how the coaches like it. That's how PK coaches. I mean, what was interesting, some of the players were talking about how previous regimes before Sark arrived, you know, Tom Herman's staff and those guys were a lot more raw, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And PK is kind of he's an NFL type of coach. He's not going to give hype speeches. He's fairly quiet, but he's very analytical. He's very smart. He knows his stuff, and he expects the players to as well. You know, there's not a lot of, you know, yay team, cheer on, Robert, let's go. You know, it is down to business, and that stood out to me. The teams reflect their coaches. That really stood out today. What did you see?
I thought it was interesting. I was kind of stuck when Byron and T'Vondre came at the same time. I kind of stayed away from the T'Vondre crowd because he was holding court over there. Everyone loves talking to T Sweat, and there are there's fewer journalists around Byron, so I was able to get some more questions in. But one of the things about these sessions is you are correct in the sense that, you know, these are the same guys we talk to most of the time, but since we're at the Sugar Bowl, there's a lot more national media, and so some of the questions may be a little different coming from them. And so one of the reporters, the national reporters, asked Byron, hey, you know, are you all more physical than you were in 2021? And Byron said, without a doubt, yes, we are, which led to, I got to throw a follow-up question in, you know, why is that? And I was kind of impressed by Byron's answer about that. Obviously, he gave a lot of, you know, credit to Torrey Becton and his strength staff and kind of the work that they do during the offseason and during the season as well. But he also, you know, kind of talked about how much that, you know, physicality is kind of what's preached at Texas practices now, both by, you know, Steve and his staff, but also by the players themselves. We talk a lot about culture with this Texas team, but that concept of physicality is part of that culture, and that may not have been there in 2021 or under the former coaching staff here at Texas. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I think it was Chip Brown who asked the question, asked if you know, if Byron takes offense to when teams decide to run it up the middle to where him and T'Vondre are, and you know, Byron said without a doubt they take offense to that, and he said we don't tolerate it. And I don't know if that's a hint to Dylan Johnson, although I know Texas or Washington likes to kind of run him off tackle. I think CJ Vogel did a nice little research on that on Twitter. If you want to find that over at the Football Brainiacs, talking about how many, you know, Dylan's touchdowns are off tackle. But I think that was a hint to Washington not to try to run it up the middle against those big boys, because they'll take offense to that. So those are the things I took out of Byron's session. Got to talk to Barron about being from New Orleans. We'll have a story about that up on the website, and he was giving me some food tips, places to check out. So maybe I'll go try that out later this afternoon when I get some free time. But that's kind of what I took from the players session. Speaking of Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat, I think the big thing, which is what you're riding on today, one of the big matchups is going to be how that Texas defensive line, especially those 2 interior linemen, bear against the offensive line at Washington, which won the Joe Moore Award, which is the I guess the annual award given to the offensive line, best offensive line in the country. And I felt they were kind of holding their tongues a little bit.
I know we were trying to loosen those tongues up.
We're trying to bait them a little bit. They were giving Washington their props, but they were also, I think, very confident in their abilities. Maybe getting a little tired about hearing about this great Washington offensive line. They didn't say anything that's put up on the bulletin board, but I think you kind of read between the lines. But you know, what are your thoughts about just kind of that matchup and how T'Vondre and Barron, Sorrell, and Byron Murphy are kind of looking forward to this challenge of facing the greatest offensive line in the country?
Hey, I'm not worried about Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy inside. I think they'll be fine inside. I think, like you said, Washington, I don't think is going to make a living running inside against this Texas team. But can Barron, Sorrell, can Ethan Burke, can if you want to send Justice Finkley or Anthony Hill off the edge, can those guys get pressure against a pair of really good pass protection tackles? I mean, both those tackles are probably going to play in the NFL because of their ability to protect Michael Penix. Running the game, Washington's not going to run up the middle. Simple as that. They're not going to. They're not going to power run against Texas. They're not going to push them around. But can they get pressure without doing too much blitzing against that Washington passing game? They're going to have to. So it's look, Texas, their leading sacker is 5.5, I think. I think that's Anthony Hill, or Ethan Burke. They're going to have to get pressure from the edge. We'll find out how the Texas line is the best interior line in the nation. As a pass rushing set, not so much. We'll find out how good they are Monday. What did you see?
Yeah, and it is Ethan Burke who leads the team at 5.5 sacks. But yeah, I think it helps them that they have a pretty decent offensive line to go up against during practice. I don't know if I know Texas wanted to win that Joe Moore Award, and I don't know if they were worthy of that. I think Washington's a worthy recipient of that award, although Byron said he'd take his guys in a fight any day of the week, which you'd expect him to say as teammates. But you're correct. I mean, this is going to be decided on the edges, and Michael Penix has not been sacked many times. I think someone pointed out it's like 10 times this entire season. So Texas is going to have to do a better job of getting to him and pressuring him and not giving him.
He gets rid of the ball so quick too.
Quick. Not letting him do whatever he wants. Setting up this offense, but I don't expect. Although Washington has a really good center, I don't expect the middle of the field to be much of a issue with those big guys. And you throw in the Alfred Collins and the Verdon Broughtons of the world too, coming in to relieve. I think the Huskies will have a tough time running up the middle, which they don't like to do anyways. But like I said, 5 defensive players came today. The defensive linemen we've talked to, as well as Jaylan Ford and Jahdae Barron. So take those 5 guys out of the equation. Who's one defensive player from Texas who did not speak today that needs to step up and have a huge game in the Sugar Bowl if Texas is going to be successful? Who will we be talking to in the post-game press conference if Texas wins?
Oh, it's got to be Ryan Watts. I mean, when healthy, he's the best Texas cover man. Simple as that. But he hasn't really been healthy the whole second half of the season, and he hasn't played in the last 2 or 3 games. They're going to need him. Washington has a bunch of big receivers too, and Watts is kind of your prototypical, long, lean, 6'2", 6'3", 200 pounds. He's a big corner. I assume he's healthy. I mean, he's had 6 weeks to rest that. He's got a little back issue, if he's good to go, that's such a big edge for Texas. If he's not, man, their depth's gonna be hurt against those receivers, and they won't have anyone with the size that Ryan Watts has to match up on those jump balls like Coach PK was talking about.
Yeah, obviously the corners are going to be in the spotlight. Terrence Brooks and Malik Muhammad, Gavin Holmes as well, just because of what Washington do. But I'm going to go with I think either Michael Taft or Jaron Thompson on the back end. Obviously, Texas is going to have some issues, especially in that first half, with Derek Williams unable to play because of that targeting penalty, just with their depth back there. And Jalen Catalong's no longer in the building because of the transfer portal. So, Michael and Jaron are both going to step up because we know Washington's going to try to throw it deep, and Texas has been exposed at times with the deep ball and some of those explosive plays. So, both Michael and Jaron, I think, have 3 interceptions this year, and they're going to need, if not turnovers, at least helping kind of prevent those big plays. And I think either one of those two is going to have a big game, which would be nice for Jaron Thompson as a 4-year guy who may be moving on after the season, or Michael, who's a lifelong Texas fan who was in the stands as a fan actually 5 years ago when Texas came down to New Orleans, both sitting with his family and also the Ellinger family, since he's close with them family as a Westlake kid. So
on paper, we've written a lot about Michael Taft being the former walk-on. Now he's on scholarship. You're having a former walk-on start at safety in the CFP semifinal in Sugar Bowl. A little scary, but Taft has played really well all year.
He definitely has. So this will be, I guess, his first big bowl game. This is your first big bowl game covering the Longhorns since you moved up to the beat this year. How's we're a couple days in. How's your first bowl trip? Your lovely wife made the trip. So how are things going your first couple days in New Orleans? What did you eat last night?
Jambalaya, baby. The wife was good, man. She had a salad and crab cake, but I had the jambalaya. And I've gotten a free hoodie from the good folks at the Sugar Bowl, so I don't see how it can get any better. Jambalaya and a free hoodie.
Yeah, grab my hoodie today. It's a little heavier than the hoodie we got a couple years ago, so I'll be able to keep that one in my rotation. I'll have 2 Sugar Bowl sweatshirts in the rotation. I'm sure at some point during one of these live broadcasts, I'll have it on just to show it off and see y'all can see how us journalists roll, because we love the free swag. That is a way to win me over.
They're doing a great job. The Sugar Bowl people here at the Sheraton. UT, the team is staying across Canal Street at the Marriott. We saw them walking around yesterday, kind of window shopping at food. So that was kind of fun, all wearing their matching hoodies.
It's very, very easy to tell where the Texas team is staying because there's a huge inflatable Bevo standing on the door. So there's no mistake in between where Texas is staying. And I don't know if Washington has some huge blow up at their hotel, but the Texas team hotel is not hard to spot if you're walking down Canal Street here in New Orleans. But
Texas is not understated. That's one thing they are not in anything.
That's going to do it for this little live broadcast. We appreciate everyone tuning in or rewatching it whenever we re-air this. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be talking about offense tomorrow since the offensive players, including Quinn Ewers and Kyle Flood, the offensive coordinator, will be talking tomorrow morning. But yeah, we'll be here all week on statesman.com. Obviously, read our content, the stuff we're producing. We have 7 people down here, 5 writers and 2 very hardworking photographers. So please check out our work, and we appreciate y'all tuning in. And yeah, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Enjoy your Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks all.